My name is Layla Joy, and today I'm going to take you on the future of the housing portal and residential living, where I'm going to basically show you guys a proposal on how we can reshape how we assign and place students in their housing when they get to college. And this is going to be for our HEA or our Higher Education Administration 675 course, which is Planning, Evaluation, and Research. So I will go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna really quickly go into why we should look into this. So basically, many institutions have housing portals and even lotteries, but they seem to have that missing piece in being proactive about what students are paired together. So Dartmouth College professor Bruce Sardo basically notes in his piece how students can benefit from randomly assigned college roommates, that there are positives to that randomization, and that could be, kind of promoting growth of students' connections with one another and then also influencing better decision making. However, there's still those negative connotations with randomizing or even minimal roommate selection. Neely Rory um, talks about this in her piece, Face Off Random Roommate Assignments Create Unease. And she kind of, describes the examples of how quickly it can become uncomfortable. Obviously, it's already a lot for a student to come in, it's a changing experience. But, if you meet a roommate and they have opposite daily habits, or you're already getting into miscellaneous minor disagreements, that can become really overwhelming, and it can also just start stacking tension after tension from one another and leading to a stressful semester or even whole academic year. So I want to kind of think about more of a detailed way in terms of what we could do to make sure students are getting more of a beneficial and calming roommate or housing situation. Okay, so what is our student population covering? So we have we're going to be focusing on SUNY Brockport. This means adhering up to 2,625 students across 13 residence halls in one townhouse. But I also wanted to count in kind of how much our prices are going up to from the spring 2026 to spring or fall 2026 semester. And just kind of talking about why, again, that proposal in terms of why we need to be more descriptive of who we have as a roommate is prices are going up, and students need to have that reassurance that they are going to feel safe and welcomed in their dorm or in their townhouse or whatever they decide to choose for on campus, rather than just kind of going on randomization or even minimal kind of guessing for pairing. So right here, as we can see, our double and triples aren't going up by much, but our singles and our townhouse are going up quite a bit. Um, so things to just look into. We can also look at these if we click these links. Now I will also have these linked in the bio of the video, as well as my last page, which is my reference page. And in the next slide, I'm going to kind of go over what our role would be in residential life. Okay, so what is our role on students? So currently SUNY Brockport has a team built in the residential life/learning community staff. So this is made up of one head director of residential life who oversees it more, two assistant directors, two interior assistant directors, two area coordinators, two administrative assistants, 11 residential directors that are spread out across the residential halls, and an unknown number of residential assistants at the time. So, RAs are usually hired kind of later on. But two things that kind of stuck out to me, and these are on the mission and goals page for SUNY Brockport. Yes, we have protocol things that we enforce with the students, but we also are trying to provide them living on campus with a holistic development. So this can range anywhere from putting in programs or providing that collaborative space and then ensuring students again are in supportive and safe communities. So this kind of aligns with that proposal because I'm talking about again making sure our students are in a safe environment, their dorm kind of things. Because yes, they may go to class, they may go to student orgs and clubs, but at the end of the day, they still come back to their dorm. That's their safe space, especially in a new era going from something like high school to now change and being independent really for that first time. And then there's a important aspect of the well-being of students, their engagement with students, if they're providing or practicing inclusive excellence, leadership, and organizational sustainability, which I found was really nice to include because I feel like it's like a daily or a weekly thing we could think about. So something, did I provide this week for students? Did I not provide this week? So something to just kind of think about. And next, I'm going to get more actually into the proposal itself. All right, so now it's time for the plan. So designing, creating a dorm profile within the housing portal. As I've kind of said earlier when I mentioned the talks of randomization, I wanted something that would give more information and more feedback, and that's why I proposed this kind of creation. This would be something that would be on the housing portal, programmed in there and accessed through that. And it would give students the opportunity to rank their wants or needs during the academic year, as well as edit or update. So if there's any changes, it's not like they send it off between July and August, which you guys will see later kind of in the thing, and then they never see it again. They can always make changes and adapt it a little bit. Um, but thinking about how a student already has an academic profile that an advisor could look at, well, meaning that's kind of what I would compare this to. And they kind of can keep that in their log. It's almost like a documentation. I feel like this also allows us how to see or navigate housing placements. So you have that closer idea of what students should go where, and it also kind of gives us a way to watch the progress. So let's say they're incoming freshmen, they fill this out. Okay. And then if we continue to do so years to come, we can watch how their development grows, if they had any connection or belonging or switching. For example, if somebody is introverted, maybe they switched and was like, I really want to be extroverted. I'm extroverted now, or I want a roommate that's extroverted. So things like that to kind of navigate things. Um, and it also can help even start discussions of how we should change or adapt our own styles of working in that residential life and communicating with students. Okay, so how can it be? Okay. So, how can it be impactful? So, basically, in terms of sharing information and perspective, we have that there's kind of those longer answers. So, I organize those into a few categories. So, we have our sharing room to spaces. Are they okay in terms of bathroom, kitchen, living room sharing? What is their daily habits? So, what do they do in their daily schedule? What is their sleeping patterns, their cleanliness, specific accommodations they may have, and how they observe themselves socially? Are they extroverted, introverted? Things like that that can kind of we can assess them, where should they be placed, as well as offering that free space if we didn't provide something but maybe they wanted to include it. um, they will have that point. And then I also wanted to try to do a survey style feedback portion, so this would allow students to kind of reflect and see if this was beneficial for them, so providing those long more answers and how that could help us later down the line. Well, again, we're aligning hopefully most with their needs and wants, which means they're not going to be stressed out. Their academic and social lifestyle is going to flourish. It's going to be able to stay afloat. And then for us, if we work in residential life, it can make that smoother outlook into dorm planning and noting if we see any major trends. Um, in terms of like factors or any limitations, I would say that I would factor in how long the information was accessible. So again, kind of what we've talked about with um, just in terms of privacy or confidentiality. We want to make sure that students kind of have that privacy factor, but also we're making sure that we're assessing them correctly. As well as if we do the survey, we could see that it might not be enforced as much, depending on how many times we have students complete it. Okay, and now to walk through the method. So we're going to be doing the mixed method approach. Bidix describes this as when you take on both that qualitative and quantitative. So it's not necessarily one or the other. Specifically, I really aligned this proposal with the exploratory sequential mixed method design. And this is due to starting with that qualitative side, and then you're going to collect the data and analyze. Afterwards, you push that quantitative side and you're going to collect the data to explore back to the qualitative findings. So, in terms of our qualitative data, that's going to be collected through the simple observation, which is where so like our residential position, would have no control on participants. So, we're only seeing what we can pinpoint out and explain on their dorm profile. So, seeing what they wrote and those long explanations. And then we're going to collect the quantitative data by internal databases, my apologies. So these are kind of types of databases that are recorded and then they're stored and kept to either decide or they might go towards research. So in this style, I am going to put that in terms of whoever completed the student surveys. And then to the left of us, we just see this kind of um, example of the timeframes. So if we did the dorm profile dates, we would need enrolled students to have that in before July 22nd. For incoming transfer international students, they would need it in by August 5th. And then the students would get those, their living situations or plans by the 10th of August and by the 14th. And then the optionals are a little different. It's just I did them by midterms and then added semester dates. All right. So finally, what happens after the assessment? So I want to have three spheres um, of kind of things. So I would like to have each of the residential hall directors and their RAs meet up, discuss the data, then have the whole residential life come together, discuss that data, and then finally bring that up to the president and chancellor. And that is where we can kind of see bringing up ideas and initiatives for that next year for the students and housing, making sure again they're in a community that is going to support them the best. Um, then, in terms of more dorm profile, we can look up and use the search engine for specific phrases and words. Again, finding what is some similar issues we are seeing be repetitive. In terms of the survey, we could also have a reflection of how we're performing in the past year. Um, do we feel like we're supporting those students? If it's going up, are we benefiting them enough? Things like that. And then highlighting more individualized answers. So, again, we have to keep confidentiality, but especially if they did all four surveys, I would say that we could say, oh, here is comparing their or qualitative data. So their qualitative data, here's what they wrote more in detail, but here's what they did on their survey, kind of comparing those two on a more personal level. And then we also have um, a more privatized scenario, so no one can access these old records of their old dorm profiles of what they wrote except for them after that annual year has been finished. Okay, so now what's next? So this is the final kind of little part. Um, I think we could continue the required profiles. It's something that I think a lot of students would definitely like to have too, because it's also kind of in your record. And I think that too could help out with, let's say someone's not happy with a room assignment and they go back and they say, "Oh, this doesn't even align with anything," which we're not saying that the students will automatically get that, but it's just helping us set up that system better to ensure a more community-based and supportive space for those students to live during their undergrad or grad or however many years they are staying. Um, and then the other way I feel like we could do this is kind of just adding more of a reward system. And by this, I mean getting them more interactive with that survey that we said was optional before. I want the profiles to still be required, but I think it would take a little bit longer for those surveys to become more mandatory. So I think a way we could do this is kind of including a prize, such as if we do like a college merch item. So we had the one I set it up from before. I said if we did 4 surveys, so if they do like a little checklist and they're like, okay, I did the 4 surveys and they can, verify that, then they get college admission at the end of the year. I feel like that might um get more people to do it and it would provide more accuracy in general for that survey. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I hope that I was able to kind of expand your mind and think a little bit more about housing situations and how we kind of propose about that roommate selection because I think that it's been so long that they've done the same things and I would like to move on and get more perspective from students and kind of change it up a little bit. And I look forward to hearing people if they reply or just seeing everybody else and what they got to talk about for their topic. All right, and my last slide is next, and that will just be the references. All right, and here's our final references page. So we have Vidix's research methods and applications for student affairs, where we talked a lot about our mixed methods and everything like that. We have Rory's face off random roommate assignments create unease. Where we talked about more of the negatives. And then we have how students can benefit from randomly assigned college roommates. So that's kind of the positives of randomization. And then the SUNY Rockport links from residential life and learning communities from their mission goals, their staff, the resident halls, and the current room rates that we are seeing increase a little bit. But thank you guys again, and I appreciate your time and taking to really look into this issue and the proposal that I had. Thank you.